I sit alone in my four-cornered room staring at candles. Oh, that shit is on? Let me drop some shit like this here. Real. At night I can't sleep, I toss and turn. Candlesticks in the dark, visions of bodies being burned. Four walls just staring at a nigga. I'm paranoid, sleeping with my finger on the trigger. My mother's always stressing I ain't living right, but I ain't going out without a fight. See, every time my eyes close, I start sweating and blood starts coming out my nose.
It's been a very interesting last few days. I'll make this one brief, but I just feel compelled to reach out there and talk to you guys. We've officially entered a Black Mirror reality, and I think you guys all know what I mean. First of all, Happy New Year. This is a hell of a way to start off 2021, especially after 2020 being such a drag and such a total grind for everyone just to get through. And just want to hope everyone's doing well, and that this is a very interesting time that we've been involved with. And I'm speaking directly to the last few days, the riot and attack on the Capitol that happened earlier this week, and just the dangerous and irresponsible behavior by the current president, Donald Trump. And there shouldn't be any controversy over whether or not this guy is unfit to remain as commander-in-chief of this country, and we need to get rid of this dude. And I think everyone pretty much can agree with me on that. At least if you're listening to this podcast, I'm assuming you're not one of these redneck jackasses who's storming the Capitol, promoting this false idea that somehow the election was stolen from Trump. But anyway, Wednesday, I'm working at home like most other people, and I was interested in the certification debate, so I had a news feed up in the background listening, the New York Times news feed, and I'm doing my job, listening to the news. Decided to take a coffee break, so I made myself some coffee, pulled up the video, and on the New York Times news feed, they run a video on the left-hand side, and there's the Twitter feed on the right-hand side. And, people commenting on what's going on, the action between the Republicans and Democrats, all that kind of stuff. And then someone posted a video of what was going on the streets outside of the Capitol. And I see a bunch of dudes wearing red hats, raising hell on the streets, and clashes with what appear to be police officers. And I'm like, damn. Some friends of mine, we had a Zoom call last weekend, and we asked each other, do you think anything's going to happen on Wednesday? And, I knew that there's an empowered minority of extreme right-wing people out there that believe Donald Trump should still be president, and that they're completely showing disregard for the law, the rules and regulations of democracy, and they want Nazi Germany. Basically, they want to have a totalitarian regime running the country instead of a democracy and a republic that was, this experiment of the United States has been operating like this for over 200 years. So I don't know. It's very upsetting. But I still didn't think. I thought there'd be some people out in the streets. I thought there'd be, some demonstrations, people waving flags, wearing their MAGA hats, chanting slogans, things like that. But I just couldn't believe what I saw unfolding. The debate was shut down, and they had breached the steps of the Capitol and were entering the building. And I was like, I couldn't believe this was happening. I couldn't believe that everyone was so completely unprepared for something like this, especially since Trump had been saying that, hey, I'm not going to go quietly into the night. I believe this was stolen. I'm calling all of my supporters to arms. I'm going to lead you on this march on the Capitol building. So, of course, he was conspicuously absent from the storming of the Capitol. And I just couldn't believe it came down to this. My first impressions were the police had to have been in on this. There had to have been some high-level misdirection as to what types of resources would be available on the day of the debate to ensure security of of the people involved in this thing. Everyone, not just the politicians, but the staff and people working there, all that. So everyone was in danger. That was the first thing it came to mind. And then as I scanned the crowd, I noticed another conspicuous lack of flavor. Everyone was white. And I was like, damn, of course, this is what meth addicted, opiate addicted, out of work, mental midgets who believe in white supremacy because on an individual basis, their lives are completely fucking meaningless and they lack the necessary skills or character to further their own personal lives. So they have to rely on racial politics, white supremacy, and trying to drag down anyone that's different from them because they have failed to progress in their own lives. So that's the mentality that Donald Trump appeals to, in my opinion. And I think it's fact, actually. It's not just an opinion these days. So I was thinking, and this is, I was watching this all as it happened in real time. A lot of people have come forward and said a lot of the same things that I'm about to say, so I don't feel like I'm really delivering any message, but I immediately thought back to the protests over the summer and, the brutality, Trump stepping up about the Black Lives Matter protests, that when the looting starts, the shooting starts, one of his lowbrow one-liners that he probably didn't even think that up himself either. He probably had one of his honky henchmen come up with that. And I was like, wow, this guy really is going to start shooting American citizens. That was it, immediately escalating to this level of violence. And the Capitol building, symbolically as well as functionally, one and the same with the identity of this country. It's like a crucial aspect to our country, symbolically and functionally, just in the operations of democracy, attacked by a bunch of rednecks, and they were not dealt with in a fraction of the severity that the protesters over the summer were dealt with. And I found that to be appalling, and I was like, couldn't believe it. If black people had been involved in this attack, there'd be body bags. There would be dead people, body bags being shoveled into trucks for mass burials. That's what would have happened if people of color had tried to pull something like this off. This 100% white contingency were allowed to enter the Capitol building, roam around this seat of our government, defecate on statues, steal mail, take selfies, all under the direction of Donald Trump. And it's clear. Joe Biden, who everyone has criticized as being a guy who can't speak in public, who's had problems, cognitively, went on live television, and I thought he delivered a great speech. I thought that he really was eloquent and, clear, and delivered a clear message. After all of this violence had happened, Trump doesn't go on live television. He records some sketchy iPhone, video of him talking, and puts it on Twitter. Luckily his Twitter account has been, I guess it's at this stage of the game, his Twitter and Facebook have been permanently shut down. First, not telling people to go home, not saying, we got to stop the violence. We have to, we have to conduct ourselves like citizens, like fellow countrymen, and stop the violence and go home and stop desecrating the seat of our government. The first thing he says is that is about attacking Mike Pence, basically, and how the election was stolen, and that doesn't, weakness, like all this other stuff. And then he says, oh, by the way, you guys should go home. And the most alarming statement of that message was, I love you. You are special people. And I'm like, what the fuck world are we living in? It's an episode of the Black Mirror. And, this is, like I said, I experienced this all from the comfort of my own home in front of my computer, in real time as it all unfolded. And it's an important part of our history, man. This is an important moment. This is a make or break situation in the future of our country. I mean, as it stands right now, these fringe organizations are empowered. They have successfully completed their mission, albeit a very under planned mission. Once they got into the Capitol, they had no idea what the fuck they were doing. So it just, I think that's an indication that there is a hidden hand guiding these mental midgets forward, and that obviously has to be Donald Trump, because they were repeating slogans that they were repeating basically everything he said. Now, the fracturing of our culture and our society is at a fever pitch right now. And, for the last 4 years, I've had this growing distrust of people who are Republicans who voted for Donald Trump. And I mean, in prior years, I have to say that I really didn't give a fuck about politics. I mean, I consider myself a progressive. I've registered as Democrat. I've voted. I've even voted in local politics, but I was never someone who would feel such animosity towards someone who was a quote unquote Republican until these last 4 years. At first I was, we had the election back in 2016. We were on tour. We were playing in Georgia. And I remember after our set, it was pretty much a lock that Trump had won. And there was like a very heavy vibe in the club. And even, the guys in the band, everyone was bummed out. And I just remember, man, what a complete failure. That basically some guy off the street can walk in with no experience as a politician and not even an impressive record in it as a career businessman, reality TV star, reprehensible characteristics. Also, which a lot of people I'm not sure even are aware of, prior to his election, he reposted a bunch of neo-Nazi, stuff on his Twitter and Facebook accounts. His father was also a member of the KKK, and this is the guy that people decided to put their backing behind. And I understand that there, the environment. I mean, the right wing was disenfranchised by President Obama. There were people out there like that felt that they needed a guy like Trump for some reason to quote unquote drain the swamp, and maybe he appealed to this kind of tough guy, take no shit, facade. This might be something that these people responded to, even though it was all just like a work. Like all very much just a facade that this guy was putting on, a mask. I just remember the next morning getting up at the Red Roof Inn, going downstairs and getting my mediocre cup of coffee and, just seeing like a bunch of people of color around me and wondering how they felt about all this. And as we got in the van and drove away, I was like thinking to myself, I was like, man, something awful is going to happen in the next 4 years. And sure enough, something awful did happen. At first, I attributed that to, the pandemic was the first thing. And not for nothing, it's not like Donald Trump, at least not to my knowledge, was responsible for the global pandemic. But I thought that the financial, fall, that's something that he was responsible for. The lack of management, the thousands of people that lost their lives because of his lack of management. And I mean, remember now, initially, he claimed that this pandemic was a Democrat hoax, So let's not forget that either. And I thought that was bad enough. I'm like, yeah, here's the terrible thing that happens. People are going to see that this guy was a fake. He didn't know what the hell he was doing. He's like responsible for deaths. He has no idea about the Constitution. He has no idea about any of these things that a politician should know about. A president of the United States should for sure understand the Constitution. And even though I'm very critical of our government, I am not one of these flag waving type people. I do believe in the Constitution. I think that is the one successful thing that the United States has been able to do, is develop a constitution that has lasted all these years and is able to be amended. And I believe in that. This guy probably doesn't even know how to spell constitution, let alone be familiar with the workings of it. So anyway, now we have our tragedy in the final days of his reign of terror. That one terrible thing that I had thought about, that I had been meditating on for the last 4 years, has finally come to pass. And it's manifested itself as essentially a domestic terrorist activity in an attempt to derail democracy. And apparently I just read today that the end game of this conspiracy was to murder Mike Pence, which is fucking bizarre. This is like some third world nation. I mean, they've said it before in the news, like Banana Republic, like coup d'etat, like style shit that's been going on. And I think in the coming days, the plot's going to thicken. And if you take an overall aerial view of this, there was intel that was given to these guys. They knew where certain offices were located. I think that there's like some incredibly treasonous activity that's been going on. And, the death toll's rising. People are losing their lives. A police officer passed away as a result of his wounds that he received, his head trauma. As the protesters were killed. And, the first to die was this woman. And, it's terrible. However, the way the media handle this thing, they're showing, she's a veteran. There's these pictures of her smiling, a happy citizen. No. This person was a traitorous domestic terrorist who showed up on Wednesday with the intent of storming the Capitol and carrying out some plan that was masterminded by Donald Trump to commit some kind of crime, which, who knows what the end game really was. Murder of Mike. All right, there you go. The murder of Mike Pence. So she's an accomplice to attempted murder. So the fact that she fell is of no consequence to me. I think that is exactly what you put on the line if you're going to do these types of things. She's not a hero. She's not, I'm sure that these fringe rednecks look at her as some sort of freedom fighter, but then in reality, I don't believe she is. There's no freedom to be fought for. The lies that these people actually believe are lies. And that's the differential between what happened on Wednesday and the protests over the summer. The police brutality, the murders, the police murders, of the murder of innocent people, the erosion of rights, and just the movement of Black Lives Matter had to do with, I mean, I'm going to use this term in its true meaning, social justice. You know, and this action on Wednesday has absolutely nothing to do with social justice or equality or rights or anything. It has to do with sour grapes by an incredibly weak man named Donald Trump and the ignorance of the people that follow him to carry out some fucking plan that is one of the most un-American activities in the history of our country. And you know, I'm glad they're finding these people. I'm glad that they're collecting them up, and I believe they should be tried as terrorists. You know, part of me believes that those initial people that were arrested probably disappeared into the bowels of Guantanamo Bay and were being waterboarded for information. I hope that's what happened to them. But yeah, it's so surreal seeing something like that. And yeah, I felt compelled. I mean, I know that I'm not giving you guys any kind of like deep insights into anything or whatever, but it's just, I guess, frustration and fear, possibly. You know, real anxiety about what the next couple weeks are going to be like. And I hope that Donald Trump is brought to justice, man. I hope that he ends up in jail. I hope that a consequence that's equal to the actions that he's done are bestowed upon him. I hope that, you know, there's actual justice. And I think that's what we as Americans deserve. We've had to live through this for the last 4 years. We have to deal with this guy. We have to live under his ignorant fucking rule. And he needs to, you know, the fucking pay the piper, man, in my opinion. So, yeah, and also just the feelings of division. You know, I mean, I live in New Jersey, and you know, it's a Democratic state, but there's a strong Donald Trump right-wing contingency here. You know, there's on the way to the gym, I drive through Woodbridge, and there's a guy who's flying Trump flags, you know, and it's on the way back from the practice space, man. It's like I drive up Route 35, and like I look to my left, and there's like Trump, you know, flags, Trump 2020. Keep America great, you know? And it just makes me uncomfortable and really, I guess, feel sad in some ways too, that people can be fucking tricked, you know? And I thought it was obvious that this guy was a fucking total charlatan, you know? And, but I also find myself being incredibly angry. And like I was in 7-Eleven last night down in Keyport, and I was on my way to the practice space, and I stopped in there to get some water, and you know, there's like some construction style guy with like his you know, pickup truck set up and everything, and I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, I wonder if this fucking guy supports this shit. I wonder if, you know, he voted for Donald Trump. I wonder if he has some of these fucked up like right wing like ideas. And I just remember I was sitting in my car and I was like looking at this guy getting in his truck, and I was like, maybe I should follow this guy to his house and just beat the fuck out of him. You know, light his fucking truck on fire. You know, smash the windows of his house. And I'm like, man, that's the wrong mindset to have, because that's just feeding the whole, playing into exactly what a guy like Donald Trump wants us to feel. This division. This us and them mentality. So it's been hard, but I've been like curtailing a lot of these feelings. I do believe that the people that invaded the Capitol are different people than your run-of-the-mill Republican. Surely the Republicans are fucking fractured by like, I mean, there's, you know, they're in complete disarray right now. But even if you voted for Trump, I don't, you know, I tend to think you're a fucking idiot, number one. You know, and I have family members that voted for him. So I extend that to them too. It makes me doubt whether or not they're competent to even drive a fucking car. But do I think that you're a terrorist because you voted for Donald Trump? Not necessarily. You know, I've been watching a lot of this footage, and it's definitely come out that some of these people were members of extreme white power organization, neo-fascists, neo-Nazis, like that fool with the horned helmet and the no shirt. Like he had the Valknut symbol tattooed on his chest, and that's like, yeah, that's a Nazi. It's not in and of itself. It's not a Nazi symbol. It's a symbol that the Nazis stole from pagan Europe. But, you know, neo-fascists use that symbol. This dude has it tattooed on his ribcage, along with the Thor's hammer, which is another symbol that neo-Nazis stole from pagan Europe. But, the guy that was at Pelosi's desk, he was connected to some far-right neo-fascist, neo-Nazi organization. So, yeah, it's, hey, shake hands with your brethren, everyone who voted for Donald Trump. It's like you've decided to place yourself next to these scumbags, and good for you. You guys very much executed some really top-notch judgment. So I hope you guys are all proud. And hey, you can say what you want about the Democrats. I voted Democrat. I am registered as a Democrat. I consider myself progressive. I'm a reasonable person. But at least I would really like to know what percentage of Democrats believe the earth is flat versus the percentage of Republicans that believe the earth is flat. So that's just a metric that I'd like to use to measure intelligence. So thanks for listening, man. There's going to be some really interesting times ahead of us, and I hope we can all make it through in one piece, and everyone's got their mental health in mind and are at least trying to. Sometimes you just got to take a pause, man, and take a breath and just, fucking move on, man. But I believe that 2021, we're going to be getting out of this stuff, and we're going to come out the other side of this thing better. But before I leave, we'll talk about some fun shit. Thanks to you guys for listening to the Boston musings about Sam Black Church and Tree, and I've gotten messages that some of you people have checked those bands out, checked out Sam Black Church, and that there's that documentary out there which I have to check out about SBC. And Mark, our manager, Toombs' manager, provided some information about Sam Black Church and Tree, that there was major label interest in both of those bands. And for various reasons, it just wasn't able to materialize for them. One band, Tree, it was their own fault that they ended up not getting signed to a major label and at least having a shot at a career as like a major act. But in the case of Sam Black Church, it had to do with complications with Tang Records, unfortunately. And, I guess during that phase of the 90s, I'll use Helmet, for example. I know that Amphetamine Reptile received like a sizable sum of money to free Helmet from whatever obligation they had with Sam Black for Helmet so that they could sign to Interscope. And from what I was able to piece together, it seems that Curtis over at Tang Records was expecting the same kind of payout for Sam Black Church, and that's why they weren't able to have that opportunity materialize for them. And I find that to be very unfortunate, man, because I really think that they could have, they could have rode a nice few years of doing great things nationally and internationally, and they could have been a band that a lot of fans would have gotten into. They could have been out there tearing it up across the globe, making records and doing great tours and festivals and all this other stuff. But everything happens for a reason in this life, I guess. Also, I'm not going to speak too much about it now, but over the next month or so, there'll be a lot more activity on this feed, and less activity on another feed, and we'll just leave it at that. And things are going to get a little bit more interesting over here. I'm hoping you guys stick around, and I thank everyone who has continued to listen to Everything Went Black. Metal Matters has taken up quite a bit of my time. And a lot of the content I produce at that particular outlet would probably be equally as valid over here. So we'll see how things play out. Anyway, everyone hang in there, and hopefully we come out the other side of this thing together. And I wish everyone a good day. Take care.